what do you think was your favorite piece that you guys, of course, all the movies had to transition some way, shape, or form. Certain things had to be selected. Unfortunately, certain things, couldn't be transitioned over. But what was like your most favorite thing that you worked on to transition over?
Wow, that's hard because between Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, there's over 140,000 individual pieces of set dressing that we put in out there. And I think one of my favorite pieces would have to be the Chinese licorice man. Was in Honeydukes.
Okay.
And that was, of course, built for the movie originally, then we built it for the park. And Pierre Bohanna, who's here speaking this weekend, his father actually built the one for the movie, so it was a very special piece for us to honor his father by building it for the park.
Awesome.
For me, I love the challenge of figuring out things that nobody's ever done. So I'm going to say the Weasley window. Go away from props and the architecture side of it. Finding something that was 20 feet tall, twisted, racked, spin, and then throw a big wrench in of, oh, by the way, there's a big man inside of it, and he's got to have his arms through the glass, and he's got to be raising and lowering his hat. Figuring that out and actually seeing that thing go up was my favorite part. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, by the way, it has to stand up to 135-mile-an-hour winds. It has to not leak on the people.
Important things to note. Details. So what's been your continued involvement as far as creating the props, the brooms, the continual things that need to kind of be evolved to keep things going in the parks?
Harry Potter especially, we take great care in maintaining it and keeping it the way it was on opening day. And my crew is very much involved. I've actually got a group of about 25 amazing artists that work for me. Universal Studios, we do all of our props and set dressing in-house. Everything's purchased and fabricated at my shop for all of our attractions. And for instance, we just opened up the new Sugar Plums candy store in Diagon. So it's always evolving, we're always adding. It's a thing that's never finished. I always feel like I need to add another piece. There may be something that I want to stick in the Weasley store that I feel is missing. So that's one of the fun things about Potter. It is constantly evolving, and we're always working to make it better.
My involvement really comes from when we decide we're going to build the next one. I'm usually the person that they'll come to say, hey, we feel like we're going to put Harry Potter in Universal Japan. We feel like we're going to put Harry Potter in Hollywood. And they say, Mike, see where it fits. And I usually go, all right, give me like 20 minutes, and then I'll say it doesn't. And then they'll say, no, make it fit. So that was me. The master planning side of it is where I'll come in.
Very nice. And you were mentioning before there are a ton of props, but how many exactly are there out there? Or maybe a round number?
A round number? Well, in Diagon Alley alone, there's 106,000 individual pieces of set dressing. We've fabricated over 6,500 pieces in the shop that I run. And in Hogsmeade, there's about 30,000 individual pieces of props and set dressing. And that includes wine boxes and everything. So it's an enormous amount of stuff. It takes us, each time we have repeated Hogsmeade, we have 2 to 3 years to shop and build everything that goes into making the world come to life.
All I'm doing is giving him the windows to put the stuff in. There's about 480 of those in Diagon alone.
Yeah, it's a lot of windows. We're a lot of windows. One thing, I haven't talked to you guys since the last time I was here was just before Diagon Alley opened. Mm-hmm. So how do you guys think we did? Did it turn out all right?
It is great. I personally, one of the amazing things that I think is, when you're going through there, for the first couple of times, you reach certain areas of that, those places where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that this was here. And then you start exploring more. So I think you really, to get the full feel of it, you have to visit it about, 18,000 times to really kind of take it all in. And then I'm sure there's plenty of things that you may go walk by and not even realize that this is serving some purpose. It's not just a dressing for something. This has meaning, so I mean, speaking of those things, why don't you talk a little bit about the importance of those props and why they're so, you know, as far as placement is concerned, yes, but what is it about the props that kind of brings the things to life?
Well, the props are what bring it to life. If it weren't for what my team does, it would be a lot of very beautifully designed crooked buildings with nothing in them. So we try to make a story behind everything we do. If there's a store, be it Wiseacres or the Weasley Brothers, we try to put some story behind it. We try to think, how would the shopkeeper operate in this store? And try and make it as true to life as possible. And the Potter world is just layer upon layer upon layer to really make it a believable place that's been there for hundreds of years. And it's always a challenge to do, but it's, you know, and I think we made it a believable world.
That reminds me of one of the favorite quotes that I ever heard from Stuart Craig. Dale Mason, who was our creative director, and I spent 6 months in London during the design of Diagon, and one of the first things that Stuart ever said when he walked in there, he said, if you don't believe the world is real, you're never going to believe the magic's real. So we got a kind of crash course in 1700s British architecture, and it was, all right, if this building's made out of stone, it would sink and it would lean this way. If it's made out of brick, it can bow and it can crack. If it's made out of wood, it can shear and it can fall over this way. So we had this language that he had already developed really through all the films, but we figured that out. We figured that out pretty quickly, that everything has a rationale behind it, and you don't really realize it when you're there, but I think you would realize it if it weren't there.
Sure.
You kind of subconsciously know that, no, that's exactly how that would fall over.
Well, that's one of the great things that I think about having these kind of panel, these kind of discussions is now, you know, everyone that's here, maybe they're visiting for the first time, or maybe they've been before, when you go back and you have this information behind, like, no, we kind of got an inside idea of how these things were built and why they were built, you might actually experience it, you know, differently. You know, and on top of that experience, I mean, of course, there were so many things that were going on in the movies. What was kind of the process of taking the movies and transitioning them into the props and the designs? And I mean, walk us through that process of why certain things were chosen. What was that like?
Well, everything that's built for a movie is, for the most part, is built to last a few days on set for filming. And everything we built had to stand up to our guests visiting every day for 20 years or more. So that was, it was a challenge for us, taking things that were made to not last very long and turning them into things that will last forever, which meant experimenting with new materials and new processes of making stuff, new paint processes, and that's the biggest thing that we did as far as the props, to take things from the movie into the real world.
And for me, it was all about, how do I make this thing that looks like it's been there for hundreds of years and is falling over to the ground completely and utterly safe from a building code standpoint and all that continued occupancy. It started off as, what can we hide the steel in? Okay. What kind of interior design can we get from the art department in the UK that says, oh, this was a really beautiful wood column, and it was ornate, it was gorgeous, but inside of it is this huge hunking piece of structure, and working with them to figure all that out was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's pretty unique because, you know, when you go through the attraction and then you're making your way through the different shops and the different areas and the different places where you can, you know, grab some food, there has to be a balance between what's functional, you know, from a creative standpoint, and you knowing that we're going to have guests that are coming through, but also stay true to form. That no, it was congested because there wasn't a lot of space to build in, and you had to use certain substances to, you know, to make these things, to kind of tie all that in together.
And making sure that our guests never see that line.
Right.
Because when you go to our operations staff and you say, oh, by the way, I want you to build a kitchen, but it's at 10 degrees this way, they kind of go, well, no, but we'll do that out front, and that's great. But finding a point where the lean stops and the reality of things set in, and making sure that that's as hidden as possible, that was a big deal.
Well, it's awesome. They're two fantastic attractions. Were you going to add something there?
Well, I was going to say, you guys may know we recently completed the Wizarding World Hollywood. and with each Wizarding World, everything changes just a little bit. So we've got a few new places to see in the Wizarding World, and I was wondering how many of you guys were planning on going out to Hollywood and checking out Hogsmeade when it opens.
I'll be raising my hand on that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. With Hollywood, I really, I mean, my crew, this was the third time we've done Hogsmeade, and I let them go crazy. It's like, let's make it the best one we've ever made. So from a set dressing and prop standpoint, the gadgets and gizmos are the coolest ever, and everything's, it's going to be great. So definitely go out and see it if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my standpoint, it became a game of let's see what new mistakes we can make. Let's not make the same old ones that we made before. Let's learn and make it better this time around.